I tell you, being a TEDx speaker and being here all day is pretty amazing. It's a kind of a humility training. Just about the time you think maybe you made a difference in the world, the next speaker's up. So it's interesting, as I travel around the world, the big thing people are asking me is that I need to know more about collaboration. And I think people are finally getting, with the speed of change nowadays, that you can't learn everything by yourself. If you want to stay up to date, you need to learn from other people. And that people are finally getting that no one of us is as smart as all of us. And so you might say, well, Blanchard, you're going to talk to us about collaboration. What's your credentials? Well, I've written over 50 books, which I guess is not too bad for a guy that most of my professors told me in graduate school I couldn't write. And they said, if you want to be around a university, you better be a college administrator, because with a publisher perish, you'll never make it. So it's so interesting. I never forget my mom said to me one day, she said, Ken, why don't you write a book by yourself? And I've only written 2 books by myself, and all the rest have been with other people. At my 70th birthday party, I invited all my co-authors to come together, kind of for a, Tuesdays at Maury gathering, and it was really kind of fun to spend a day and a half kind of sharing some of the simple truths that we had learned over the years, and it was really a hoot. But the biggest question people ask me is, how could you collaborate with so many different people with different personalities and different egos? And so what I want to do is share with you 3 collaborations that I've had, just to maybe give you some thoughts about collaboration for yourself, because I think all of us today need to be able to reach out to people around us and learn from them, and them learn from us. My first job coming out of graduate school, I was assistant to the dean of the College of Business at Ohio University. And when I got there, the dean said to me, Ken, he said, I want you to teach a course. Now, of course, I never thought about teaching a course because of the publisher perish kind of thing. But he said, I don't care anything about that. I want you to teach a course. So I did. And after about 2 weeks, I came home to my wife, Margie, and I said, this is what I ought to be doing. This teaching is really fun. She said, well, what about the writing? I said, I don't know. I'll figure something out about that. But at the same time that I came, Paul Hersey had just come as chairman of the management department. And he was kind of a rising star in the leadership area. And I heard he taught a great leadership course. So in the fall of 1966, I went up to Paul and I said, Paul, I understand you teach a great leadership course. Do you mind if I sit in next semester? And he said, nobody audits my course. If you want to take it for credit, you're welcome. And he walked away. I thought, that's really kind of nice, isn't it? I had a PhD and he didn't. And he wants me to take his course. So I went home, of course, to my chief advisor, Margie. And she said to me, well, is he any good as a teacher? I said, he's supposed to be great. She said, well, get your ego out of the way and take his damn course. Which is exactly what I did. And I took the course and I wrote the papers with everybody else. And in June 1967, after the course, Hersey comes into my office and he says, Ken, he said, I've been teaching leadership for 10 years, and I think I'm better than anybody, but I can't write. I'm a nervous wreck. And they want me to write a textbook, and I've been looking for a good writer like you. I went, whoa, isn't that great? I almost laughed out loud, but he had read my papers. And I said, well, why don't we do it? We ought to be a great team. You can't write, and I'm not supposed to. Why don't we do it? And so we wrote a textbook called Management of Organizational Behavior that the students loved, because Hersey and I don't know any big words. And it just came out in its 10th edition, and it sells more today than it did in the 1960s. Unbelievable. And now what did I learn from that? A couple of things I think you ought to all think about. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can do or can't do. If you've got a vision about what you want to do, go for it. Have that vision. You'll figure a way out to do it. Don't let anybody limit you. And the other thing is that if you meet somebody who really wants to accomplish something, and you also want to accomplish something, and together you can do it. Wow, that's a really powerful collaboration. And Paul wanted to write this textbook so he could be promoted to full professor. And I wanted to write something so I could become a professor. And in fact, it was interesting. I went to the dean after the book came out, and I said, I quit as an administrator. He said, you can't quit. I said, why not? He said, I was going to fire you. I said, why? He said, you're a lousy administrator, which I guess I was. And so we finally agreed it was a photo finish between him firing me and my quitting. But that was my first big collaboration writing. The second big one happened when Margie and I moved here to San Diego, and we were invited to a cocktail party for authors in San Diego. And I guess because I had a textbook, I qualified. And Margie met Spencer Johnson at the cocktail party. And Spencer at that time was a children's book writer. Some of you might even read some of his books as kids called Value Tales, you know, whole series of books like The Value of a Sense of Humor, the story of Will Rogers and all. And Margie kind of brought Spencer over to me, and he said, you two should write a children's book for managers. They won't read anything else. And that was the beginning of one of the most amazing collaborations around the 1 Minute Manager. And we met in the first week in November, and we had a first draft of that book by the end of December. The book wrote us. But the interesting learning on that is sometimes the most interesting collaborations is when you both bring to the party very different things. And here's a children's book writer and an emerging guy in the leadership area working together and deciding, and this changed publishing for business, to write a parable, a little 100-page book about this 1 Minute Manager, because I was a storyteller and he was a children's book writer.